Hello, 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 and welcome to the Productivity League Workshop. I'm your host, Megan Nolan, and I'm so excited that you are here. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen, and we are going to get this party started. So let me just pull this up here and welcome, everybody. Welcome, welcome. Thank you for being here live. Thank you for those of you catching us later on the replay. Welcome. So if you could please let us know where in the world you are as we are getting set up, and would love to get connected with you and just know where you are in the world. And also, now that I'm sharing my screen, if you could please let me know that you can still hear me and see me. You never know what happens when you go into the screen share mode, right? So if you could please let me know with a one in the chat that you can still hear me and see me. And also, where in the world are you? I'm so excited to learn and to welcome you here. And so that also goes for those of you catching us later on the replay. Excited to connect with you as well. So it's looking good. As long as you can still hear me and see me, we are going to get up, up, and away. So today, we are going to be talking about something you're very likely familiar with, right? And as I mentioned, some of these very commonly known characteristics of how stress expresses itself in our life, like miscommunications, maybe missed deadlines, maybe mood swings, or noticing decline in team members' output, or you notice that they're distracted at work, or maybe showing up to work and not really making a lot of progress on their goals or their to-do list. These are really commonly known signals and symptoms of stress. Hello and welcome. I love that I can see you. Can you see me and hear me? Yes, I love it. Okay, perfect. Thank you. Love the energy. Thank you. Thank you. Come into the chat with me. Let me know where you are in the world. I love to just really honor that we are here as a global community looking to learn and grow and really empower yourself with more skills, more tools, more knowledge to truly support yourself first and foremost as a leader, but then be able to support your team. So we are going to be talking about symptoms and signals of stress that maybe you hadn't realized were actually such. Okay, perfect. You're from Atlanta. Love it, love it, love it. Welcome, welcome. And so we're going to jump right in. I want to really honor your time as we are moving right along here. And so, before I share these really common stress-induced habits that might be sabotaging and draining your team's time and energy, I will do a very, very brief introduction to me. So, aloha from the beautiful island of Maui. Yes, I live on the beautiful island of Maui, Hawaii. And as a chief wellness officer, I am a strategic partner for sales teams that want to boost their conversions and their productivity without burning their team members out so that they are sustainably successful in all areas of their life, not just in work, but truly are thriving as humans. I've been in the wellness industry for over 20 years as a personal trainer, as a yoga instructor, and as a trauma-informed, polyvagal-informed stress and resilience coach. And as a international best-selling author, I had that beautiful accomplishment. I've taught yoga a lot of fun places in the world, including all of the power plants here on Maui, which you can see a photo of in the middle. And I'm also an award-winning speaker, and I've shared the stage with some truly great people, Les Brown, Joe Vitale, Jack Canfield. And so it's just been a really beautiful experience to be able to share these tools with people. And as an entrepreneur for over 20 years, I've come to realize in my experiences with others and myself that one common factor in our human experience, unfortunately, is stress. And so, as we drop into this, maybe a reminder for you, maybe some insights for you. Do you remember when you learned in biology about the way we react to stress and how we were taught it was we go into fight or flight, or we're in rest and digest? So, basically, an on and an off switch. So, if you remember that, put an F in the chat. And the interesting thing about our understanding of humans, and of course, with the introduction of AI, is that we're always learning, right? And in 1994, Dr. Stephen Porges recognized that there are a lot more expressions of the states of the nervous system than we first thought, right? We are more complicated than we realized. Shocker. I know, shocker. And the truth is that these are wirings that exist within the human body, and they show up, of course, in very real situations where we are required and needed to get out of the situation or whatever it is. But these wirings exist and they express themselves in a lot of different forms. So when we are experiencing this really grounded and steady, anchored, ready, confident, clear energy, open body posture, really focused, we're in what I call the flow mode. And that's at the bottom of the graph here in the green. Technically, it's called the ventral vagal, but we don't need to get overly fancy in this very brief workshop. There's a lot more depth to it, of course. But when we're in that flow mode, you can access your natural skills, gifts, and talents. But when we activate and we go into stress, we default by our natural wiring into go mode. And that is when we get mobilized by cortisol and adrenaline and we take action. And we either go into go mode and we go towards the situation, which is called fight, or we go away from the situation, which is called flight. And of course, in the organizational workplace setting, this expresses a little differently than if you had to run towards an exploding pipe, right, in a real life scenario. But if stress continues and is chronic, we exhaust our natural resources and we get depleted, right? And so this is where we go into what I call no mode, and that's at the top of the graph in red. And this is where we are shutting down. Complete shutdown is called flop, but for our purposes today, we're going to talk a little bit about freeze and another expression of freeze called fawn, which is, remember, fawn, or like a deer, like Bambi from the movie Bambi, is when we shift into a state of trying to handle the situation, but not completely shutting down or freezing. So we're going to go into these a little bit and how they show up as protective patterns that are the body's way of attempting to handle a stressful situation, because ultimately that's what our body and our brain is wired to do, is to survive. That's the ultimate goal of the nervous system, is survival. And when we are activated in a stress reaction, be that running towards the exploding pipe or inbox 5000 with a to-do list that just keeps growing, our brain activity shifts. And when we are in that go mode or no mode, we are active in a part of the brain called the amygdala. And in the amygdala, that's our threat detection center of the brain, we don't have access to the higher functions of the brain: creativity, focus, decision-making, presence, engagement. It's simply not available because that's not a priority for the body in that moment, right? And all of those beautiful gifts, which you naturally have, which all humans, all of your team members have, exist in a part of the brain called the prefrontal cortex, which is more in the front of the brain. And so what we want to learn how to do is recognize these protective patterns of the nervous system so that we can begin to recognize them first in ourselves and then in others. But before we jump into this, I want to show you that one of the most powerful tools that we have to be able to shift from no mode or go mode and back into that flow state, back into the bottom of the graph, and welcome everybody, is to be able to recognize these patterns and be able to take control of our focus and shift our inner state. And one of the most powerful ways for you to do that is to learn how to take a power pause. Power pause is just like it sounds. It's brief, it's effective, and it's a powerful tool for shifting the state of your nervous system so that you can bring your prefrontal cortex, that part of your brain that is focus and clarity and drive, back online and access your gifts. And power pauses are really the most effective way for you to build a stress resilient and high performing team. And we'll talk more about that in a bit. And really, one of the key things to remember before we get into these 8 stress induced, success stopping, there we go, I had a few words coming out at the same time, success stopping habits that are indications that we are experiencing stress, is that I want you to remember 2 very important things. That when we go over these today, I want you to look through the lens of compassionate curiosity, first of all, which is looking at things from the perspective of, how can this help me grow? How can this help me learn? What is this showing me, right? A growth mindset, if you will. So put CC in the chat if you're willing to look at this through compassionate curiosity, as well as non-judgmental awareness. So another natural patterning and wiring of the body and the nervous system is our negativity bias. And that is our tendency to remember faults, flaws, problems, issues, so that they don't happen again. But we tend to hyperfixate on those, especially when it comes to ourselves and how we show up in the world. And this is often called the inner critic, right? But it goes much deeper than that. We don't have time to go all the way into it today, but I want you to remember to look through the lens of non-judgmental awareness. Okay, so we have CC, and then in the chat put NJ. Okay, so if you're committed to looking at these through the lens of CC and Naja, we call them in the Power Pause method. I love acronyms, it makes it easier to remember everything. And those are really the core foundations of the Power Pause method. So let's get started. So as we go through these, just remember looking through the lens of compassionate curiosity in case they happen to be ones you recognize in yourself. And it may be in your friends or your partner or your boss or your teammate. So we want to look through the lens, really look through the lens of CC and Naja, right? Compassionate curiosity and non-judgmental awareness. So we're going to talk about fight, flight, freeze, and fawn. Okay, so the first reaction, and again, these aren't sequential and you don't necessarily have all of these, but the first expression of fight mode is when we are mobilized and we go into action, right? So this is somebody that is very driven, very ambitious, a go-getter, who's on that team, can't stop, won't stop, don't stop, got to get it done now sort of energy. Okay, do you know that? Do you know that sort of person? And so each one of these habits, I've put somebody that you might recognize or a character that you might recognize that really expresses this tendency. And so this is where we have that insatiable drive for more. We're always going for the next goal, the next title, the next accomplishment, the next, KPI, like whatever it is. And there's this constant, almost insatiable drive for more. You might be thinking, well, that's good. I need people to be doing this. But can you see if you are running the system constantly, i.e., someone or yourself, if this happens to be you, it's completely exhausted if we're not slowing down to resource and recover and replenish the system being you or your body or your teammate. And so we want to look at this through the lens of compassionate curiosity and non-judgmental awareness as to, okay, this is great because in each one of these habits, in each one of these patterns, there's a lot of gold. And we'll talk about that in a minute. So here we have someone who really ties their self-worth to achievement, to approval. And there's always this feeling of more and more and more. Maybe they have difficulty slowing down and celebrating themselves because there's an underlying need to prove, right? And so it's very much a stress reaction. So another expression of fight mode is perfectionism. And of course, maybe you saw this movie, maybe you didn't, but you saw Jack Nicholson, who was very detail oriented, right? Like things a certain way. And that's how perfectionism expresses itself. And hyperfixation on details, controlling things, slowing things down because it has to be a certain way before it can be released, and being sometimes really rigid in that and making things a little difficult to collaborate if that's the case. And so let's talk about the gold in this for a moment, right? Gold is another acronym. So put gold in the chat. So gold is an acronym for growth, opportunity, lessons, and direction. Growth, opportunity, lessons, and direction. Within each one of these patterns, these protective patterns, right? And these protective patterns are learned behaviors that we picked up as children that were modeled by our caregivers because that's how they handled stress. They are things that we practice so much, they become wired into the subconscious mind and become part of the way we behave, so much so that you might think that these are part of your personality if you notice yourself in any of these. But these are learned behaviors, which means because of the way our brain learns and shifts and changes, which is called neuroplasticity, these are things that can be shifted, right? And so perfectionism has a lot of gold. Of course, we want to put things out at a very high quality, right? But we don't want to slow ourselves down because we're hyperfixating on the details and not being willing to put it out to get feedback, right? We learn from getting feedback from others. So again, all of these have gold in them. Okay, thank you. Gold, love it, love it, love it. So next expression of fight mode is that being always on. Remember Rabbit from Winnie the Pooh, who was very much in the mix all the time and very in it, very high energy, very almost agitated, kind of that. This is where we want to look at ourself, right? Of feeling that we always got to be involved in the projects. Or maybe it's a teammate, or maybe it's whoever. Again, we're looking through the lens of compassionate curiosity. We want to learn. And this is feeling like we need to be part of everything, being in the mix, having a difficulty kind of trusting other people, delegating. And so again, we want to look at this from the lens of, ooh, does this show up for me, right? And this can create tension in our team dynamics. It can cause people to make mistakes. If we're always running, if we're always going, and we're always on, it can lead to a lot of questioning and internal concern and exhaustion of our body, because we're just feeling like we always have to perform. And this is oftentimes coming from a place of, again, feeling that we need to prove, right? And so again, this is an expression of fight mode. And the final expression of fight mode, again, totally natural, neutral wirings of the nervous system, is controlling. And that's where perhaps you, perhaps me, I've definitely felt this sometimes. I'm the oldest child, so I think it was patterned into me really young, is feeling like we have to be in charge and we got to get it done. We can do it better. We can do it faster. We can do it now. It's a waste of time to get somebody else to do it because delegation. And so that is the controlling energy and having difficulties delegating it out to other people. You can see how this could lead to exhaustion and maybe disempowerment, maybe frustration around other people not pulling their weight and this and that. So again, we want to look at this from the lens of, how is this showing up for me first, if it is showing up for you? And how could that be impacting dynamics, relationships, conversations, communications? How can we take a step back? How can we take a power pause and get a little perspective on it, so that we can see that this might be showing up for us? And it might be an indicator that we are in that go mode, that we are in a stress state. So how can we shift it so you can come back and use this gift? Because in that, there's so many gifts, right? We need leaders. We need people that are going out there and taking action and that are willing to do it. But it must be done from a place of regulation in order for it to be done with clarity and decision and decisiveness, because it's guided by the prefrontal cortex. It's not guided by stress and worry and tension, which is what happens if we are stressed. So another expression of go mode is flight mode, right? We talked about that. That's when we go away from the situation. It's the get me out of here quick energy. And oftentimes in the organizational setting, this can be expressed as procrastination. So you remember our friends from The Lion King, right? They were all about Hakuna Matata, and they were just chilling. They're just chilling, right? And so procrastination is actually a stress reaction. It's an avoidance technique. And oftentimes we procrastinate on things that are really important, that are going to stretch us, that are causing us to get out of our comfort zone, which in and of itself can feel a little stressful, right? I acknowledge that. If you recognize that in yourself too, if you've put off things that, were stretching you, put a 1 in the chat. Because again, let's just share the common humanity of this. And these are natural wired patterns. They're neither good nor bad, but they're ways for us to learn about ourselves. So oftentimes when we delay having conversations or taking actions on things, it can lead to rushed, reactive decision making or action taking, and it can cause us to feel even more stress if we are not taking action on said issue. But yet it's not like we're just over here procrastinating, relaxing, like kicking it. It's more that we are procrastinating, we're not doing the thing we're supposed to be doing, and we're stressed about it the whole time. Does that resonate with you? Because I'll just put my hand up, and I have done that 1,000%. I will acknowledge that. Thank you. Thank you. And so I love that. And so another expression of flight mode is often called shiny objects syndrome or the shiny squirrel. I can definitely relate to this. And so thank you so much. I do that too, right? We all do it too. And it's just a natural way of handling stress. It's a little bit, anticlimactic and unproductive way, but here we are. So distractibility, right? And this might be yourself. This might be a teammate that's like, oh, but what about this platform? Maybe we should try this AI agent. Maybe we should use this email provider. And it's just going all over the place. And as such, we're avoiding moving towards the issue, and we're going away from it and going in all different directions, right? You remember Doug from this movie? Maybe you do, maybe you don't. It's a children's movie. And he was known for saying, squirrel, and he would get so distracted by everything. So what's the gold in this distractibility, right? Of somebody who's chasing new ideas while leaving other things incomplete. Maybe they're dealing with boredom or overwhelm. The gold in this is somebody who's really curious. They have a very curious mind. They want to know about this. They want to look at that. Maybe they want to make sure they're getting the most out of every situation. So again, these are qualities and characteristics that we get to nurture in ourselves and nurture in our teammates by taking these power pauses, recognizing when we're in this pattern, and coming back to that decisive action of what you want to do, what's important, how we can take action, how we can move forward. And we'll talk about how to do that and how to take power pauses, because they are truly the most effective way to build a stress resilient team and a high performing team at that. So next we have freeze. So if you remember on the graph, we got mobilized into go mode, right? And that was either going away or towards the situation. And then if the stress continues and our resources, i.e. our energy, our nervous system capacity gets depleted or exhausted, we shift into freeze. So freeze is still very much a pent up energy. Freeze is not sleep. Freeze is not rest. We only rest and heal in flow mode or in that lower green state, if you remember from the chart. And so freeze is that agitated, I need to do something about this, but I don't know what to do about it, so I'm not doing anything about it energy. Can you relate to that? Put a 2 in the chat. I certainly have to. And so there's that very much that mobilized energy, but it's almost trapped, right? It's trapped because we're not in our body taking action, doing things. We're in our head, right? We're active in the amygdala, and the stress part of the brain is causing us to question everything and go ask ChatGPT what you should do, and then go ask Cloud and go ask everybody. And it's a different energy. Right. And so this is where we get in that, what's often called analysis paralysis, overthinking every decision, crowdsourcing 20 different answers before you're willing to even take a little bit of action. And so, of course, that slows things down, right? And that really can drain us if we're just constantly spiraling in our head. So another expression of freeze mode is what we talked about earlier, which is a combined state of the nervous system. So in freeze, we have that slowing, shutting down mode, right? Think of it when your computer is slowly turning off or slowly turning on, whatever the case may be, is we have that lack of action, right? We're not doing anything because we're immobilized. But in this fawn mode of the nervous system is often called please and appease. And this is when we are moving towards it a little bit to engage and to try to rectify the situation or handle the situation or talk our way in or out of a situation. This is very much that people pleasing energy, right? And this is where we tend to say yes when we mean no. Has anybody done that before? I'll just put my hand up. Kimberly, thank you. And so say yes when we really mean no, and then we walk away and we're like, "Duh, why did I do that?" I've come to practice saying, that's a great idea. Let me think about that. Feel free to borrow that. It's a good one. So give yourself that little bit of buffer. Okay. So that's giving you a power pause to make a different choice and not feeling obligated. So this, again, these are patterns that we were modeled as children, right? And so oftentimes there's this need to help out, need to be of service, this desire to make it right. And this is people pleasing, right? This is a fawn expression of the nervous system. And again, these are learned behaviors or oftentimes biologically induced or societally induced because of expectations that we have around certain people, certain roles, certain genders, right? And so this is, again, something for us to look at of how might this be showing up for you? Because if we give and we give and we give, we get to a point where we don't have any more to give unless we are resourcing ourselves, replenishing yourself, which is what power pauses are all about, so that you don't get to the point of being frustrated or feeling resentful, because that doesn't feel good either, right? That doesn't feel good either. So you remember this character from Schitt's Creek? Did anybody watch that? It was a good show. Put SC in the chat if you watch that show. Yes, he's so funny, right? But he got walked all over. He got walked all over. And if you don't know who he is, no worries. He just got walked all over. You got to remember that. And so, what I wanted to really bring to your awareness is how these might be showing up. And so, we talked before about these are the different activated states of the nervous system. So, how do we bring your big brain back online, right? How do we bring that beautiful prefrontal cortex aspect of your brain back online so you're not flipping your lid and reacting from stress in one of these protective patterns, which, by the way, are really just ways that your body is trying to communicate with you. Your body is trying to communicate with you about what state you're in. Just like your body periodically says, "Hi, I'm a little bit thirsty. I have a little bit of a headache. I've only drank coffee today. Could we get a little water over here?" Or maybe, when you hear your tummy rumbling, right? That's another signal from the body. All of these behaviors are just signals. So we want to look at them again from CC and Naja, right? Compassionate curiosity and non-judgmental self-awareness. You don't get annoyed at your stomach when it rumbles because you're hungry, because you haven't had a snack, I hope. And so again, these are just things that you're learning about yourself. And that's truly the gold. That's truly the gold of this whole perspective and framework. So how do we take power pauses? If they are the most effective way to create stress resilient and high performing teams, we start with these 3 steps, and there's only 3 steps, and it only takes 3 minutes. Winning. We start by feeling the feels, right? All of those patterns have feelings associated with them. We talked a little bit about that. Maybe it's the anxiety, maybe it's the worry, maybe it's the self-doubt, maybe it's sadness, maybe it's confusion. All of these feelings are valid and they are all welcome, right? They are all welcome. None of them are good, none of them are bad. They're all welcome. So we want to start by labeling how we feel when we notice we're in one of those behaviors. And even the act of just labeling it, wow, I'm really overwhelmed right now, actually shifts the activity of your brain and brings your prefrontal cortex, which is a bigger part of the brain, back online. So that's step 1. Okay, put feel in the chat. We want to feel the feels. We want to acknowledge it. We want to witness it. We want to be present with it. And then we take a power pause. So put PP in the chat. So we feel the feels, step 1, take a power pause, step 2. How do you take a power pause? Simple. Ready? Use your fingers, count with me. Breathe in, breathe out. We're going to breathe in for 4. You're counting on your fingers in case you can't see me. Breathe in for 1, 2, 3, 4. Breathe out for 4, 3, 2. One more time. Breathe in, 2, 3, 4. Breathe out, 2, 3, 4. Anything that brings you out of your head into your body, literally coming to your senses, grounding your feet down, shaking out any tension, taking a little walk, opening up your body, moving out of that ouchy slouchy posture. That's a whole other workshop, but the effect of sitting and slouching, it's not great. It doesn't look cute. It's not great for your body. Anyways, sidetrack. Okay, that's me getting distracted. Come back, come back, come back. So taking a power pause shifts the state of your nervous system, allows you to come back into that state of decision and presence so that you can access all of the gifts, right? All of the gold, all of the growth, the perspective, the opportunity, the lessons, the directions that are available to you when you are in that flow state. Love that. Thank you. I love the personality. Thank you so much. I appreciate that. Yeah, this is just me, authentic, grounded in my regulated nervous system, practicing what I teach, right? So the final component of the Power Pause method is decide. That's not available to us when we flipped our lid and we're in a stress state. But it's available to you when you have that level of clarity and intentionality is how you want to handle the situation. Who do you want to be in that conversation that's completing the project or whatever it is? You have that level of agency after you've shifted the state of the brain activity, come back to that place of presence within yourself. It's so empowering. Your body language changes. The way that you make eye contact changes. The way you listen changes. So much gold in that shift that's available to you that will affect and impact the outcome of whatever situation you are in or about to go into. It's so incredible how effective these are. So those are the 3 key pillars of the Power Pause method, the 3 steps. Power pauses literally only take minutes. By shifting the state of the nervous system, we have these beautiful ripples of effect. And of course, a regulated, vibrant, resilient nervous system has other good things like boosting your immune function, helping you to sleep better, putting less risk for injury, right? Reducing the risk of every major chronic disease. Every major chronic disease is affected by stress. So what can we do to mitigate stress? Power pauses. What can we do to boost performance? Power pauses. Okay, so you saw how quick that took, how fast that was. I guess I should say that more eloquently. And so to wrap up, as we are at time right now, love it. And really just to recap, that power pauses are the most effective way for you to support your team at this deeper level so that it beneficially affects not only their performance, their productivity, but really importantly, I think, and I hope you agree, their health and their happiness so that they're thriving in all areas of their life and work, right? Of course, in the work setting, but we want people to be happy and joyful and expressive in themselves so that they can use these gifts, use these talents, use these skills. So that is everything I wanted to share with you today. I do have one last thing, is that if any of this landed for you and you are curious about how these can really support your team or you, or even just expanding on this workshop a little bit more, I would love to connect further. And so really, as I mentioned earlier, as a strategic partner for sales teams, I help to boost conversions and productivity without burning people out, right? Because of everything that you just learned and the efficacy of power pauses at the deep level of the nervous system. So I would love to connect with you further and to book a conversion catalyst call. The link is in the chat. If you happen to be watching this later on the replay, the link will be on the replay page as well as in your email. So the link is right there. I would love to connect with you and be able to talk through how we can support your team without burning them out and really support them at the deepest level of their being and their nervous system in a way that's sustainably and very directly impactful in the workplace, but in all areas of their life as well. So that is everything that I wanted to share with you today. I'm going to keep the chat up and go off of screen share. Hi, Kimberly. Thank you. You're welcome. So I do have a little bit more time. If anybody has any questions about anything we went over, about the work that I do or anything, I do want to honor your time. We're 2 minutes after. Sorry about that. Punctuality is one of my core values. You're welcome. You're welcome. Well, thank you so much for being here. It was great to have you. For those that of you were here live, those of you on the replay later, I would love to stay connected. How did I get into this field? Great question. Thank you. If you're curious about the answer to that question, then stick around because we have a short chat about why I got into this work, where I came from, and why it's so important to me and why I love it so much. And I'd love for you to hear the answer too. So I got into this field because I have always loved exercise. I'm one of those crazy people that loves to exercise and loves feeling strong and loves feeling healthy. And so my journey started as a personal trainer, and I'm still a personal trainer, but my initial education was in gerontology. So gerontology is the study of aging and how we can live well, how can we enhance the quality of our life, how can we let that trickle into everything that we do over the course of the age and the lifespan. So that's my step into the wellness field. And I really recognize that when we can support ourselves and our team members at the deepest level of their body, then they are thriving naturally, which then, of course, impacts and benefits their physical health, mental health, emotional health, and spiritual health, if that's relevant to people. And so all of those things are benefited when someone is thriving at this deep systemic level of the nervous system. So for me, it became really obvious of, well, doing something that I love as a personal trainer, yoga instructor, how can we use these well-validated, scientifically backed, passing and surpassing the test of time when it comes to, all of these different practices in a way that truly supports people in all areas of their life and specifically in areas that are really important to them. And that for many people is in their work setting and how we can support their impact that they're making in the world, the income that they're generating, their contribution to the team. And so that's how I got started. And now is how I do the work that I do.
So another question for you. So how did you go from, and maybe you didn't, but how did you go from the gym, so to speak, as a fitness instructor to maybe trying to put yourself in front of corporate and companies to encourage the team development aspect?
Great question. Well, so as I mentioned earlier, I live on Maui, and I think it was in 2018, they introduced the Blue Zones project. Are you familiar with the Blue Zones?
No.
Okay. So it's an initiative that was created by a National Geographic researcher called Dan Buettner. There's actually a really cool documentary series on Netflix. And so it's a really beautiful recognition of areas on the planet where people would live to over 100 really consistently, and they call those blue zones. So for example, Okinawa, Japan, there's areas in Greece, areas in Italy, there's places in California where people were just naturally thriving, and they looked at these different characteristics of that population and what led to them doing really well and thriving, right? And some of that was the way that they're eating, right? We've heard about the Mediterranean diet, having more movement throughout the day, staying connected to their life's purpose, all of that sort of thing. And so the blue zones are places that naturally exist, but the Blue Zones project was introduced to a variety of different areas in the US that weren't doing as well physically, mentally, emotionally, psychologically. And so Maui became a blue zone because we actually, unfortunately, have really high rates of diabetes here. And so they
Mhm.
introduced these practices and these principles. And one of the principles is to move more throughout the day, especially at work. And so I thought, well, this is beautiful. I love this. This is what I'm doing. And so I got involved with a lot of local businesses here and was able to support them in introducing movement throughout the workday and how it benefited people and changed their outlook, changed their energy. And so that was the introduction. And that's where I got in, connected to Maui Electric and working with the county of Maui. And so a lot of great things. And then 2020, we all know what happened then, right? And so it just
Hmm.
went whoosh and everything changed. And I really started to initially focus on other entrepreneurs because that's still a business. It's a much smaller one, right? A lot of times is focusing on people that were a team of one or smaller teams and being able to serve people throughout the course of the pandemic, being able to stay active and move and entertained and lower their stress and their worry, et cetera, et cetera. So that's really been the journey. And it's really a recognition of the impact of these tools that I know and I love so much and that are the foundation of my health and my happiness and the values that I bring forth in my business and my life, but then be able to serve in a way that really impacts organizations and individuals.
Nice. I always try to understand people's journey and how they got to where they got to and what they're doing. So that's good.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah,
Yeah.
definitely.
I appreciate that question. Yeah, it's always interesting to look back and reflect on the evolution of what we do and how we do it and be able to recognize the many pivots and turns along the way. And so I feel very blessed to be able to share these tools in a way that really helps people to, for me, the core value is people to be happy, for them to be
Hmm.
healthy, for them to be well. And so that when we start there and when we operate from there, it really does impact and benefit other things. And that's just not, fluffy talk. Everything we just talked about validates what I'm saying, and so does science and research. And so it's really looking at how can we support the team member as a human, and then all of these other auxiliary roles that they play.